This video is brought to you by the Abbey Community Skills Society. Hello and welcome back. My name is Laszlo and I'm your instructor. In this video, we'll learn how to use Krita to create our 2D graphics for our Flappy Bird game. So let's get started. Before we can use Krita, I like to always put a little time into organization. So I'm going to start by creating a folder. So you can do that by, if you're on Windows, you can right click on your desktop, go to New and click Folder. And the first folder I'm going to create is the project folder. So I will call this Flappy Bird. Once this folder is ready, I'm going to double click it to open the folder, and I'm going to make some more folders in here. So the first folder I want to make is the, so once again, right click, new folder. And this one I'm going to call source images. And then I'm going to do another one, right click, new folder. And this one I'm going to call sprites. Now the difference between these two is that all the files that go into source images will be the files that I can edit in Krita. They are not image files, they are Krita files, Krita project files. And what goes in sprites is the finished images. So when you export an image from Krita, we'll throw those into sprites. Okay, so now that we've got the folder set up, I can close my folders. And I can double click Krita to start the program. And there we go. So this is Krita. It's a open source alternative to Photoshop. So it does have a lot of buttons, which might be a little bit scary at first, but don't worry about it. That I'll only focus on the very basic features of Krita, and because for one, this is a game design course, not a digital art course. There are lots of resources on YouTube and on the internet for how to use Krita. So if you'd like to get better at using Krita, please look up some of those classes. Before we do anything else, let's make sure that we're all in the same default view. So to do that, you can go up to Window, go to Workspace, and select Default. And this just makes sure that whatever's on your screen will match what's on my screen. Okay, moving on. So we're going to create a few files. Let's start with the background first, because that's the big one that'll hold all the other files. So I'm going to click New File. I'm going to set the width to be 400 pixels. That's what we agreed on. Height to be 600 pixels. Perfect. And I can click Create. Once I've created the file, it's a good idea to save it right away. So I'm going to go up to the top left and click on this little disk icon. And then navigate to my desktop. So there's my desktop. Go to the folder that I just created, so that's a Flappy Bird. And then go to Source Images. Remember, this is a project file. We're saving it in the Source Images folder. And I'm going to call it, I'm not going to call it Flappy Bird Assets. I'm going to call it Background. And save. So that's perfect. I'm going to repeat this process a few more times because we need a couple of images. So I'm going to go create new document. That's this piece of paper icon in the top left. This time we're going to do the ground. So we know the ground has to have a width of 400 and a height of about 120. I think that's what we kind of planned in the planning video. There we go. So there's my ground. Same thing. I'm going to click the Save button and call this one Ground. And you'll notice that it's already in the proper folder. It saves the last folder that you saved in, or remembers the last folder. Click Save. Moving on, I'm going to click this again. Now let's make the pipe. So I think for the pipe, we're going to have the width to be 64 and the height to be, I think we said 400. So let's set that up. There we go. That's perfect for the pipe. You can click Save again. Call this pipe. And then save. And then finally, we need to make the bird. So one more new file. Let's set the width to be 32 and the height to be 32. It's going to be really small. This is almost like a pixelated bird. I think that's okay. And then click Create. Perfect. And let's save this and call this bird. Okay, so what we've done so far is we've created the four image project files, the background, ground, pipe, and bird. And the next step is really to start drawing these. And I'll give you just a very basic breakdown of what tools are available to you. And from then on, I'll let you do the drawing yourself. I'll have like a fast forward kind of version of me drawing. You guys can follow along if you'd like. If not, then just do your own thing. This is really just an exploration for you on how to use digital drawing tools. One other thing I want to mention is this order that I did these things in. So I made the background, ground, pipe, and bird. You don't have to follow this order. When you're working on a game on a computer, or generally on any project on a computer, there isn't like a set order of instructions that you have to follow. You can always go back and forth, and if you need to make a new sprite or another sprite or another image, you can just create another one. If you need to change something in your project, you can go back to the project and back and forth. Like it's very free. You're very free to just go back and forth. A lot of times, projects like these don't even start with proper art. They just start with very simple sketches of what they want, maybe just like almost like stick figures, and they use those to create the game. And once the game is ready, they go back and update the art or pass the art on to somebody who's an actual artist. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to follow step by step every time. You have freedom in moving back and forth between doing art, working on the game, doing sound, and so on. And you can also split this task between multiple people, as I mentioned. If you know a friend who's very artistic, get them to create these images and then get them to send image files over to you once they're done. Okay, anyways, so this is Krita. We've got 4 images ready to go: background, ground, pipe, and bird. I'm just gonna start with the, let's say, background. No, sorry, let's start with something easier. Let's start with the bird. So what you have on the left-hand side here, these are your tools. I'm only going to be focusing really on one tool, which is the brush tool here. It's called the freehand brush tool. You can select it by clicking on it or pressing the button B. And then what it gives you on the right-hand side here is a collection of tools or brushes you can use. If you click all in this list, you'll see that there's a big list of different brushes you can use. I'm probably for this one, for the bird, since the bird is very small, I'm going to be using the pixel art brushes and just the very basic first one. This lets you draw, pixeled lines. If you want to undo something, press Ctrl Z. Yeah, so that's the brush tool. To draw, you just left click on the screen and drag. Simple as that. If you want to erase, you can go up here to the top and there's a little eraser icon, click that, and it turns your tool into an eraser. Now you'll probably notice right away that as I'm erasing, it doesn't look like it did before. I've got these little checkerboard things behind. That's because I started working on the background layer, which is never recommended for you to do. So let me just undo my changes and let's talk about layers a little bit. So over on the right hand side, we have this category called layers. And layers, you can kind of imagine them as pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. You've got every project starts by default with a background layer. And I generally recommend that you don't use a background layer. It's just let it sit there, maybe use it to change the color of the background, but don't do anything else with it. Instead, what you want to do is click this little plus icon. And what this does is it adds new layers for you. So this is paint layer, and I can click it again. There's paint layer 2 and so on. I'm going to be doing the technique where I do a inking, which or outlining, so which kind of draws the outline of everything that I need to do, and then coloring. So that's why I create 2 layers, one for ink, one for color. So once you've created these layers, you can right click on them and go to properties, and you can rename it. So I'm going to rename this one to be ink, and I'm going to rename the one above it, so once again properties, to be color. Or even better would be fill. These are totally arbitrary names. You can name them whatever you like. I might actually rename this one to outlines. I'm just trying to show you how much freedom you have. So these are all things that are up to you. You decide how to do these things. So I've got these 2 layers, and now the beauty of layers is that before, when I erased, I was erasing what's on the background. I don't want to do that. If you select a different layer and I try and erase, nothing happens. Well, that's because I'm not working on the background layer anymore. I'm working on the outline layer. So if I turn off my eraser, draw something, and then go to my eraser now and erase, you'll see the background is still white like it was before. If I go to the fill layer, which is the layer above, and I let's just increase the brush size, pick a different color, and I color over. Uh-oh, did the outline disappear? Well, no, it didn't. It's just underneath. So here's another good point. So you probably want the outline to be on top. You want it to be the thing that you see over top the color. So if I drag this on top, you'll notice that the outline is now there. And the cool thing about this is when you go do your outline, so let's just bring the brush size back down. Let's select the black color for the outline. You can create your, let's go back to one. I could draw my bird. Now this is, you know what, let's erase everything. Let's erase everything from every layer. And I'll do a quick run through of how I would draw a bird. Okay, so first thing, select your brush, select the pixel art tool. Now this is only if you're working very low amount of pixels, in which this case we are. Select the outline layer, that's the one on the top. And then I'm gonna draw a bird. Now I do have, this is, if you wanna be an artist, it's good to get like a, I'm not sure if the camera is capturing this. It's a drawing pencil, and also I have a drawing tablet. It's a good investment if you really want to pursue art on a computer. Okay, so let's draw the bird. So I'm going to draw the outline first. Now, I am not an artist. I'm a programmer, so please forgive me. Okay, so we've got this. Now my outline is done. I'm gonna flip over to my fill. So you saw that I went from outline layer to fill layer. Now I can increase the brush size a little bit and start selecting some color. So I want the bird to be kind of red. So I'm gonna choose red over here and choose a red color that I like, maybe a little bit more orange. There we go. And now I can kind of fill this in. And notice how I'm actually filling underneath the outline, but it won't show because of course the outline is on top. So let's just do this. There we go. Like that. I want the beak to be kind of orangish, so I'm going to switch this to orange. There we go. I want the eyeball to be white, so let's just switch to white and fix the eyeball. And I want the wing to be white as well, so let's just turn this white. There we go. So just like that, my bird is done. I do want to show you how you can turn on and off layers. So I don't want this background around here, because if I exported the bird into the game with this background, he would have like this white space around him. So if you click the little eyeball, it turns the background layer off. And right away I can actually see I didn't color this in properly. So I need to go back to my fill layer, select white, and just make sure that, this is why I said it's generally a good idea to turn off your background so that it doesn't trick you into thinking that you actually colored areas where you have not. I just want to show you what the fill layer looks like without the outline. So that's my fill layer without the outline. If I turn the outline on, it gives it much more character. So this is a very simple technique for drawing simple video game characters. Now I'm gonna speed this whole thing up. I'm gonna draw all of these other images, so background, ground, pipe, and bird, and then we'll move on to, I'll show you how to put it all together. Okay, so bear with me. Okay, here I'm going to actually, I think I drew everything a little bit too high. So I'm going to use this selection tool. It's this tool on the top and the bottom section of the tools. Rectangle selection tool. What you can do is you can select everything that you have on the screen. Use the move tool, and I can move everything down. I just wanted to do this so that I think this way I can get my ground to cover this bottom section of these bushes. Yeah, that's all I wanted to do. Moving on, back to the brush. Also, to unselect, press Ctrl-Shift-A. Just for a second, if you click this tool here, this is called the horizontal mirror tool. Puts a line in the middle. That means whenever I draw something on one side, it gets mirrored on the other side. The reason this is a pretty cool tool to use is if you need to draw something that's going to tile, run side by side, you can use the mirror tool to kind of draw one side, and you can see that on the left hand side here, this thing appeared. Well, it's showing me where my other drawing started from, so it's a good way to connect the two ends. Okay, so with that, we've got all four of our images ready to go. So we've got our background, ground, pipe, and bird. So first thing should be that we save all of these. So you can always click save. Honestly, you should be saving all the time. So every couple of minutes, do a save. So I'm just switching between these files by clicking up at the tabs here and then clicking save. Okay, so I've got them all saved. You'll notice also that I have disabled the background on all of them. So that's just by clicking the little icon, the eye icon, or I button. There we go. And before we move on, I want to show you a really cool technique that kind of shows you what this all looks like if you throw it all together. So one of the cool things that you can do in Krita is you can take one project file and include it in another project file. So to do that, you can add in, so I'm going to go to my background layer. That's the big one that can contain everything because it's big enough to contain everything. And then I click on this little drop down. So I'm not clicking the plus, I'm clicking the little drop down next to it and going down to file layer. And I'm going to call this first one bird. I'm going to click open folder, and from the same folder where I saved all these things, I'm going to select the bird and click open and then OK. And now I can see that this is what the bird will look like in my game, and I can use the move tool and I can move him around. So I'm just going to place him somewhere, probably somewhere there, because that's where he's going to be in the actual game. Now, this is not the game. I'm just creating like a prototype of the image to see what it would look like if this was the game. Okay, I'm going to repeat this process a few more times. So I want to add the ground as well. So let's type in ground. And there's the ground. Perfect. And I can move this down to the bottom. Now you probably noticed that as I'm dragging the ground, it's behind the outline. So that's not ideal. So I can rearrange these layers and put it above the outline. And now it's going to cover the outline. And I can just put it right at the bottom. You can zoom in, you can roll the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and it should. Also, if you press down on the middle mouse button, it allows you to pan the image. So rolling the mouse wheel zooms in and out, pressing down lets you pan the image. Okay, so that's looking pretty good so far. And let's just add the pipes. I'm gonna go add another file layer. Select the pipe. There we go, and there's the pipe, and I can kind of put it. So the pipe would be, this is what I was talking about, it would be much lower in the game because it has a chance of moving up and down. So we want to make sure that you never see that bottom section of it. So let's just throw the pipe in here. And yeah, so this is what the game will look like. I think I'm very happy with the way it looks. So let's just save this. One more thing, I've got the bird selected here in Krita. To be able to make the bird animated, we need to have more than just one image. We need to have every single frame of the animation drawn, so wing down and wing up. So we need to create a second image to the right hand side here, thereby creating a sprite sheet that Godot can use. And to do this, I'll show you what to do. So first we need to make the image twice as big. So we're going to go image, resize canvas, and set the width to be 64. Make sure the anchor is the left arrow, because that way the original image stays on the left side. Perfect. So now you've got twice as much drawing space to work on. Next step is I want to take this bird and duplicate him to the right hand side here. So to do that, I need every single layer that contains the bird. So I have the outline layer and the fill layer. If you hold down Shift while clicking on these layers, you can select multiple layers. So that's the first step. So I've selected both layers. Now I press Ctrl C and Ctrl V. And when I do that, it creates a copy of these two layers for me. It's perfect. Now I can move over to my Move tool, and with the two layers still being highlighted, I can move the second copy of the bird over to the right. And I'm going to place it literally side by side. So I've got the two birds, perfect. Now I can go away from my Move tool and go back to my Brush tool. And with my Brush tool, I'm going to select the outline first. I'm just going to fix up this wing thing. So the wing on the second image needs to be facing up. So let's do that quickly. And now here's a cool technique. So if I want to get this exact color that was used before, I can use the eyedropper tool. It's this little eyedropper on the left hand side. Click on the color, and now I've got that color set. Perfect. So I've got my two birds. This is another cool feature. Is I want to show you that if I go back to my background, you'll notice that now I have the updated version of this image, which is so cool because you can just go back and forth all these different image files that you're working on, do some changes, and it shows up in the final composite. Now I just need to show you how do you export these images for use in Godot. So let's start with the background. I can disable everything that's not background. So I'm going to disable the pipes, disable the ground, disable the bird. Here's my background. I'm going to go File, Export, change it from a Krita file type to a PNG image. And I'm going to switch the folder from source images to sprites, because sprites are the folder that I'm actually going to use in Godot. And I can just leave it called background.png and save. It'll ask you some questions. You can just click OK. And there we go. Let's just double check that this works. So I can minimize Krita, go to my folder, Flappy Bird, go to the sprites folder, and I can see there's an image here. If I double click it, perfect. It's just the image of the background. So I'm going to repeat this process a few more times. Let's go back to Krita. Okay, so everything is saved. If I minimize Krita, I don't have to close Krita. You can always go back and update these files and make them look better if you like, or change them if you don't like them. Here's my images. I can flip through them. Perfect. Okay, so that is how you use Krita. This was a very introductory level look into Krita. It's way more powerful than what I showed you, and this is actually not, the way I showed you isn't even the best way to use it. It just takes a lot more time to give you a better show of the program. So please play around with it, look at some tutorials and get better at using it. And then in the next video, I'll show you, we'll create some sounds for our game. So see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.